So you said something a moment ago that's true. 99% of people who spy for a foreign country are doing it for the money. And the money can be quite significant. Um, a small handful of people will do it for ideology, just because, if they're spying for the Chinese, they love Chinese communism, right? Or they're doing it
Or
for the
they have
Russians.
to. John, they have to legally. I found that out as well. Legally, if you're a Chinese or Russian citizen, and the intelligence services of those countries request you to comply, you legally
Yes,
have
sir.
to, or you face jail time. That is
You are right.
mental. That
Yeah,
is
that is
insane.
nuts.
So
That's nuts. And
essentially, you
I'll
cannot
tell you,
trust any Russian or Chinese
no,
person in the
because
US.
you have to assume the worst. And then I'll tell you another thing. About 6 months ago, the New York Police Department, of all organizations, cracked this Chinese band of people where they had an office in the Soho area of Manhattan, near Chinatown. But these were apparently, or what appeared to be, private Chinese citizens. They weren't government officials, they weren't intelligence officers, they were just private Chinese citizens going to Chinese dissidents and saying things like, "Hey, shut your mouth, or I'm going to break your father's ribs when I get back to China, and I'm going to rape your mother." And eventually, some of these dissidents went to the NYPD and said, "Hey, this has to be Chinese intelligence or whatever." It turned out to be a group of illegals, which is what we call Russian sleeper cells, right? They come to the United States, they get green cards in many cases, they get normal jobs. Maybe you're working in a bookstore, or you work in a garage, or you work at Macy's, and at night you go out and threaten people on behalf of the Chinese intelligence service. That's called an illegal. We call them NOCs, non-official cover. So you are working for whatever country's intelligence service, but you do not have diplomatic cover. So in that case, if you're arrested, you're on your own. You're going to go on trial and you're going to go to prison. But then what usually happens is the Russian government or the Chinese government or whatever the country happens to be will very discreetly come and say, "All right, you caught us. We admit this is illegal. How about if we make a trade? We'll give you some of your people and you give us some of our people." And that's how everybody ends up going home. The Russians and the
That is
Chinese, I'll point out, the Russians and the Chinese are the two countries that do that the most regularly.
so my team messaged me now. They said, and I'm not sure if they're right. So I asked people to fact check it. They said that China's pretty strict on this. So legally, you face 4 years or 6 years of jail. That's what I read earlier. Russia is not as strict and makes it seem more consensual or more cooperative. I'm not sure about this. I'll have them fact check it because I read something different today. But I was mainly focusing on China because this
Yeah.
is what worries me. Obviously, these are the two big superpowers. We've talked about it before. Um, how deep does it go? Because there was that story a few years ago.
Yeah.
There was that lady, the Maria Butina.
Fortunate.
She was, yeah, exactly, Butina. She's now back in Russia. I didn't know she was back in
Yes.
Russia, but she
She got
befriended a
elected
lot
to
of
the
U.S.
Duma.
politicians. Yeah, exactly, exactly. So what's the story? So she befriended a few U.S. politicians. She even managed to ask Trump a question in 2015, a pre-scripted question about Russia. So she got as close as Trump. She's got a picture, I think, with Don Jr., if I remember correctly. And she tried to befriend different politicians and people with influence by she said, this is the exact quote: "I can offer sex in exchange for a position within special interest organizations." Um, so how many more Maria Butinas do you think there is, and who do you think is winning spycraft right now, China or the US?
I would say China. China's winning. There are probably hundreds of sleepers in the US. The Russians have been doing this for 100 years. Where I live in Arlington, Virginia, in the United States, and the last time the FBI disrupted a group of Russian sleepers, uh, many of them lived in Arlington, Virginia, walking distance from my house. And one of them, worked in a bookstore. One of them was married to an American guy who had no idea that he was married to a Russian deep cover KGB officer. No idea. There's a television series
Married.
that yeah, it's not on anymore. The Americans. It was on Netflix. It was wildly successful. And it's about that. It's about Russian sleepers who not only live among us in American society and culture, but their children are born in the United States, are American citizens. And then when they turn 17 or 18, the parents pull them aside and say, listen, things aren't as they seem. We're actually KGB, deep cover, et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to send you back to Moscow for training. They want them so that they speak without accents. People just assume they're Americans, and they can infiltrate different parts of society, especially in a place like Washington, where everybody has something to do with the government. Either you work for the government or you work for a company that does business with the government or some associated organization, a think tank, the court system, whatever. And they spread out all across the country, and they wait to be activated. So what happens is when they first get to the United States, they come with very discrete communications systems. For example, they will buy a dresser for the bedroom, and you take out one of the drawers in this strange way, and there's a little hook at the back, and you activate the hook, and there's a radio back there, and the radio will transmit your reports back to Moscow or back to Beijing. And that's how you communicate. In the event of an emergency, there's a handler that you can trigger an emergency meeting with, and the handler, you call the handler and you say, "Hi, is this the pizza place? I want a large pizza with sausage." That means meet me at midnight tomorrow at the park in Vienna, Virginia. And so then you can do the in-person meeting. The Chinese, though, are better at this than we are.
How
Yeah.
many? So going back to that initial story, the honeypots, Chinese honeypots in Silicon Valley. How many tech executives do you think that could have a girlfriend or even a wife right now? And I know you can't give a number, but do you think it's that how worried should we be that there's some of them right now that are married or in love with a spy? Because that report came in again, female spies, creating honeypot traps. They're Chinese and Russian ones, sending attractive women. So China and Russia sending attractive women that even marry tech leaders and steal secrets.
Yep.
And that includes secrets about satellites, missiles, defense, surveillance, and obviously AI.
Yes.
That seems
And
pretty
and not
pretty
just not
extraordinary.
just not just tech executives. We had a member of Congress from California who was the victim of a honeypot. What, 4 years ago? He had no idea that his girlfriend was a Chinese intelligence officer. And he's a member of Congress, for God's sake, who has jurisdiction over these tech issues on Capitol Hill. So, we have to assume that there are probably, a few dozen women out there having sex with tech nerds, just hoping to ingratiate themselves. And the tech nerds are probably thinking, God, how did I get such a beautiful woman? Oh my God, I'm a lucky guy. I never thought I could get a woman so beautiful. Well, guess what? You didn't. She targeted you, and she's downloading your computer when you are in the shower or when you go to work in the morning and sending it
But
to
John, what
China.
about with all the technology that's available today? And I was just listening to quotes by Larry Ellison about how citizens will be he said the following quote: "Citizens will be on their best behavior because we'll be constantly recording, and reporting everything that's going on." Talking about AI and the developments
Yeah.
there, and obviously we're seeing what Palantir is able to do now. Um, what is happening to spycraft now with AI and with the mass surveillance that we're seeing? Because I know that the CIA,
Wow.
you've talked about it. The CIA, I've disconnected my TV after you said that, and I've got the
Uh-huh.
Faraday cages all over my house. But I've kind of given up, to be honest. So so first, the CIA can essentially hack to any CIA and other forms and other intelligence organizations could hack to your phone, your laptop, your TV, and be able to listen to you, your cameras, etc. Um, so first, maybe talk about spycraft with the AI, with surveillance, and then we can talk about ways that people could avoid being surveyed. That's another fascinating question that interests me personally.
This is a tough question. Ed Snowden told us in the summer of 2013 that this was happening and that Americans had no idea that it was happening and that we should be trying to protect ourselves and to protect our information. Ed Snowden told us in 2013, for example, that NSA could routinely hack into your laptop, turn your camera on, and just watch what you're doing in the room. And the camera doesn't light up, right? It doesn't, there's no little green light up there when NSA is doing it. And they can just watch you do it. And the reason that he said this is because there were NSA officers activating their ex-girlfriend's cameras and just watching them, take their clothes off, come out of the shower, having sex with their new boyfriends, whatever. It's illegal to do that, but it exposed the technology. So it's more than 10-year-old technology. You know how quickly technology develops. You're a tech entrepreneur.